Good afternoon. My name is Michael Zunke. Usually I go under the nickname Mitsu. That's how the people know me usually. I'm CTO for the software monetization. And today I want to talk a bit about, well, trust somehow in the area of IoT devices. So, good. What means trust for you in IoT? Any thoughts? Any suggestions? Still after lunch break? No problem. So,
it's secure.
What?
It's secure.
It's secure, yeah! Okay, just because it's secure, I'm not sure I'm trusting it. Do I trust the NSA? I'm not sure. Okay. So how I depicted it is like, well, the device acts as expected because if I'm part of an, well, IoT ecosystem, it's probably not only the device that I care about, it's maybe that the data that I'm getting there is correct, that the device sticks to the rules, I don't have privacy problems, it is, well, giving information out there, is leaking, or whatever. So somehow that's kind of the, how I would say, what I would consider trust in IoT. So this is really a question to you. What makes you decide that you trust something or somebody? Reputation. Okay, reputation. How do you build reputation?
Based on services satisfaction.
Okay.
Or demand.
Okay, so kind of history.
Managing.
Yes, okay, okay.
If
Good.
you're referred from a reliable source, then you just
Okay.
referral.
Okay. Okay, okay. Yeah, let's try with something in that direction. So I phrased it like somebody who has a proven track record in the things that I'm interested in, that he has been doing them in a good way. Okay. Kind of like, I think that's a model when we're talking like about people or whatever that we would try to start with at least, what we would call trust. So let's try to prove this or falsify it with some IoT device. This is a safe. This type of safe is sitting with merchants. And if somebody who's buying something in these days even dares to come along really with cash, yeah, I don't know, apparently it still happens because they're still making business. The merchant can directly deposit the money in the safe. It gets registered, all added up. And at the end of the day, the safe is reporting to the transport company how much money it has in there. In fact, also the money will already be credited on his account, even if it's not picked up yet. And the transport company has then the benefits that they can decide really when they are picking up something somewhere. Is the risk too high already, too much money in there that I actually have to pick it up there? Because for the merchant, it doesn't really matter if the money is in there or not. He cannot access it. It's already on his account, so everything's fine. Cool. Nice way of doing IoT to improve your business. Okay, so let's look at the safe from the opposite side. Then here we find something that I guess most of us know. Some connector with 4 pins, also known as a USB port. Good, so what do we do with a USB port actually on a safe? A security researcher immediately will get curious what he can do there. So, in fact, what you would do, you would plug in something there and see what happens. In fact, what eventually you will realize is this is a standard USB port. The system is running Windows XP embedded. So you can do everything what you can do on a USB port on this device. You can plug in a keyboard, can then escape eventually the user interface there, can eventually manage to access the file system, can do some reverse engineering, can find out how to infect with some scripts, open the door. Just like that. Prepare a thumb drive with some scripts, plug it in there, and you get to the money. Cool. Somebody has not really been thinking through the whole thing. Good. But that's not even all. Because the trust is not only that the money is safe in there, the trust is also on how it's accounting. But in fact, you can even boot from that port. You can replace the admin password. You can have access to every file there. You can have access to the database where it's actually storing the records. You can purge the records from depositing the money. You take out the money, and the money was never in the safe. Nice theft. I like it. Okay, so what do we learn from that? Simply having experience in that field for IoT, it does not necessarily help you. Because you are enabling the device, you're creating totally new attack surfaces that the one who's actually been building it might not really be an expert in. Okay. So we tried somehow in this way to see if we can trust something in the IoT space. Maybe let's try another model. How about saying we take an independent lab for actually inspecting the device, doing a security audit. Okay. Let's take another device. This is, well, in the session before I had some discussions about this is really an IoT device. I would say it's somehow at the edge. It has all the problems already, though it's not really totally connected. Okay, so this is a sniper gun, which has, for people that are interested in weapon, probably like the technology. I'm a bit, well, hesitant in these things, but anyway. In fact, when you are watching like jet movies, fighter planes and so, you see this tag and shoot basically. You tag your device, and when the system detects you in the right position, it fires up the missile or something like that. And this is also how this gun really works. You have the screen, and on the screen you're tagging your target, and when you have aimed in the right position, it automatically fires. So this is also a high-precision device. So it's not only like this. You also will have to configure it. Means that you will have to tell it how far your target is, what is the wind speed, what is the temperature, which ammunition you are using. Okay. So these days, how do you configure that? You would have so many parameters. I don't see so many knobs there to turn around or whatever. Exactly. Exactly. It comes with an app, yes. So in fact, you can switch. Sorry?
You have to have an Android one as well.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. I don't know what is a bigger market there, but anyway. So it comes actually with a Wi-Fi server that you can switch on, and it has an app that you can configure all that stuff. Yeah. In addition, to feel more secure, you can also set a passcode which disables access to the functionality. You cannot really fire and so forth. Yes. Okay. Good. Okay. So security researcher, what would he think? Okay, I have an Android device that talks to a Wi-Fi server there. Setup was very simple. The network ID is in fact standard string plus the serial number of the gun. So everybody who sees actually the Wi-Fi spot will know actually it's that gun. Plus, the access code is the same for every gun. Okay, so the Wi-Fi does not provide any security. So it's not really very different from hooking up to the internet. Okay, you have to be in range, but there's no secret that you really have to know to get access. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is the passcode, 4 digits. Nothing like you can try only, I don't know, 5 times or whatever. You can try it out. If you do it manually, it takes time. Obviously, there's an API behind, so it's not so bad to actually get there. So the passcode is also already limited in security. Furthermore, the API, the web API that is used by the app, does not use any authentication. So it is open. The Wi-Fi is open. The API is open. Everybody can play with the API as long as it's in range. Already some nice findings with the security audit. But in fact, they went further. So the machine is running a Linux system. Well, pretty well configured, in fact, so that you cannot, by hooking up a terminal or whatever, really break in there. It comes up in single user mode. USB ports are disabled, and further things. So they had actually to take out the flash chip and read out the flash chip to get to the file system to see what's really on the device. So what they found in addition is that it also has an administration API where you can completely configure the gun, and that it is supporting firmware updates. On the good side, the firmware updates are digitally signed. You have to have a private key to sign them. But one flaw is that every trusted certificate in the store is accepted to as a signer of this update. So if a trust chain there, for example, typically like, I don't know, Symantec or whatever is a trust chain, so theoretically Symantec could actually sign the update. Yeah? If somebody's putting for some special purpose, somehow there a public key in there for another purpose to authenticate something, he can actually also create updates for the device. So difficult at least to accept it as a secure approach. Okay. The good thing is that it took them quite some time. The year probably is, well, because they didn't really focus on it, whatever, but definitely was substantial effort to get to that point. So what does it tell us? A black box audit can bring things, but to really understand the security problems of the device, it's either damned expensive and a big effort to really get there, and probably then you also not really have covered everything. So what you should be doing is when you're in your development process of doing an IoT device, you really have to integrate in the development process already the analysis for the security. So think about the attack vectors, which ones you have to address, which ones you are, well, feel brave enough not to address because they might not really have impact, or you're willing to take the risk. Take a conscious risk, I would say, if it's really like this, but you should be aware of things and take the appropriate measures to prevent the attacks. What we are seeing with IoT devices, you can read this more or less every week, something new there about them and about attacks on them, that a huge amount of development is not done with having security in mind. And to get some basics in place, there's, for example, I think a relatively good source. This is OWASP. Some people might know it from the cloud side. Open Web Application Security Project, which helps you also to secure web applications. And they did some research about a ranking of the most common flaws in IoT devices. And it's not only this ranking is there on their web page, also ways of what you should be looking at to actually mitigate them, so to help you to make actually a more secure device. For example, insecure web services, well, they might not be authenticated at all. You don't really have to prove that you are the right one to actually access them, or they are implemented in a way that is actually, I don't know, I like to scream because of something like that. For example, there is it's a bit more known example, but there are various of them. A church in Germany for, I think, 800 years, it was safe. Nobody could actually ring the bells because you really had to get in there with the keys. They installed a system to actually be able to do it remotely. What did they do? The system gives the passwords and the accounts to the browser, and the browser does a verification if the person is allowed to access it. Great. So everybody who is actually accessing the server gets all the information of as whom he could be impersonating. Great. And other things like, well, there is no differentiation done between an administration account or a normal user account, so that everybody, in fact, is running like with a root account on the device. Same goes then for network services. No encryption actually happening on the transport, so passwords are unclear or other crucial data. Everything you name it, you'll find it. So this is, I think, a very nice resource if you want to start addressing that. That helps you actually to get a bit on a security mind and also have really measures in your hand to address that. Okay. Are we done? Yeah, I know. Stupid question. I wouldn't ask that question. Okay. So what is this related to trust? How is it related to IoT devices, for example, or to... In fact, it's more even any system.
Exploits, right? People can look at your code and find problems.
Right. It doesn't matter how much, well, it does, for sure it matters, but eventually if enough people are trying to break, well, to jailbreak the iPhone, they will find a way. Because it's simply a matter of size of the code that there will be problems that eventually will allow you to get, well, root rights or whatever to exploit the system. Yeah? So it's a matter of, well, the size. And one of the key properties when you are building a secure system is that you really have to decide and look in your system, what do I really have to secure? Small is really beautiful here, yeah, because then you can really have code that you can very accurately verify. You can really play through all the, well, the possibilities of the code flow and really audit and make sure that this is secure. But if you're looking at a device, the typical approach is like, I don't know, I'm doing boot protection, I'm doing the authentication of the operating system, or maybe I'm also authenticating the applications that get started. Nice shell somehow around it, yeah? But it says nothing about the code itself. It's a huge system, so basically you can rely on that you can exploit it. So what do? Well, in fact, doing something against exploits means that you make it harder for him to actually, for the cracker to analyze the code. And there are like techniques like, well, keeping stuff encrypted, applications, and only getting decrypted when they really need to get used, or if the right authorization is in place. Just think about this service personnel case for the safe. If somehow anything that maybe could, well, open the door for the service case or whatever would have been a piece of code which is sitting there encrypted and have to plug in a key which actually performs this encryption. It doesn't help anybody who is actually breaking into the system because he would not be able to decrypt it only if he has the right key. Yeah? So you really can tie it to strong security. So keep things encrypted, for example, or doing things for IP protection means prevent the reverse engineering of crucial code. So this graph here is just a quick illustration. It depicts a code flow, basically a CFG code flow graph. You have a piece of code. This can go actually continue here, or it can continue here, and so forth. Yeah? So this is how the application looks before. And if you're performing, for example, obfuscation protection technologies on it, you're creating a much more complex graph where a lot of things are happening, get dispersed in different regions, so that it's very hard to actually understand it. Obviously, there are different qualities of tools that are doing it, and there is also technologies in place to try to move from here back to here. Just think about a malware analysis. Yeah? There's a lot of investment and researching going in malware analysis. And what is malware doing? Malware is also putting these protections in place. Yeah? And the ones that are analyzing it obviously make tools to actually get here again. So obviously some arms race, but if you do it with the right tools, you really can get to an application which is very difficult to reverse engineer. So that's somehow for in general for the code there, but it also means that if the system that you're running on, yeah, your code, which is the one that is really the crucial piece of your application, which is important to do the right things so that, well, your brand is not hurt if, your brand is actually, well, influenced if this code would not be behaving correctly. The data maybe that it is producing has to be correct, so that all of this is intact. So what you can also do is that the application itself takes care of itself. Obviously, it is in a bit of a lower position versus somehow operating system and ring 0 and whatever that you could have there. But still, there is technology that the application can monitor itself so that it does not get tempered in memory even when it's running. And also that maybe the configuration data that it's using. Take a simple use case. You have a machine which has some configuration because it is cooking some milk for being put in the carton so that it's sterilized enough to last long enough. Yeah? So if you are responsible for the quality of this and you're vouching for that, then you want to make sure that nobody's playing with these parameters. So obviously the application itself should verify that the parameters are really coming from the one who is controlling the device. So what we are, for example, also investing in this year is to enhance our enveloping technology to provide more measures here for the integrity of the application, also for the verification of files that you say you are interested in, that they don't get modified. So what else is missing? In the other room, somebody spoiled my presentation because he said this one when I was asking the first one, but anyway. So Shlomo showed this one on yesterday. And, well, the future is always uncertain, yeah? So Murphy says, if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. So the other thing, if you want to have a device out there that is lasting for a long time, that you can actually support there, you can for sure, we have to for sure put in place, well, a technology to update it if you find problems, if it is bugs or if it is security leaks or whatever. And to do this securely, you will have to put in place a secure way of verifying the update packet. So the code which is actually doing the verification should be protected against modification and against, well, changing its behavior. And it should have a trusted way of getting the public key of the one who is providing the packet. Because then you would, with your private key, sign the update packet, and the device itself can verify with this public key if it's really coming from you, so that nobody else can introduce other firmware updates or software updates. There's also a device where this was, well, in the press where it was not so nice. A lot of people are kind of relying on, well, because of physical isolations, they relied on that it's secure. Yeah? So a lot of devices, also legacy devices, have like a serial interface for doing firmware updates. Yeah? But in a lot of cases, these have been connected, in fact, eventually to the internet, the serial one, because you want to do remote maintenance. But obviously, the interface was never built for doing any authentication, doing anything against somebody who could remotely access it. Yeah? So even this, well, unintended misuse is a problem. So think about all the interfaces that you have in your devices and make sure that you have the right security measures in place to protect the access there so that nothing, well, unwanted is happening. So as takeaways, well, don't assume the properties from normal life simply work. Yeah? Have a look at your design process. What you can do to actually integrate already the security analysis and the measures for security there. Maybe take advantage of, for example, the OWASP there, or professional external help. And don't believe that simply everything is fine because I'm sitting on a device which is doing a secure boot. There are also different stages of secure boot. Maybe just the operating system is authenticated. Maybe not even any code that in addition gets loaded gets authenticated. So also there you should have a close look there. And don't trust it because it's simply too big to really trust it. There for sure is a way to get into it. And again, Murphy is with us. Any questions?
What's the cost of security?
Well,
how do you balance it out?
Yes. I think it is very difficult somehow to really put measures in place because you will have to think about what is the impact if your device is breached and is somehow causing a problem. You really have to think about what are the problems your device can cause there. I don't know, does anybody get hurt? Does networks get compromised because of that? They're like light bulbs that are actually communicating over an unsecured protocol, the Wi-Fi password of the whole system. Yeah? So very easy to get actually in the Wi-Fi just because you installed a light bulb that you can control remotely. So I think you will have to assess really what is the impact on your business from reputation perspective, what is that causing to your customers and cost. And this is somehow what you will have to look at actually to drive it. But in general, implementing security, well, at least the basics, if you start, for example, with, well, doing a review that is looking at the generic properties, that is a very small investment internally. And then if you want to achieve more, because you're having more threats, then you should take external help and you should take tools and should also take stuff from us. Yes?
Going into the same endless loop that we have already in the software security systems?
Yeah.
Very impacting in the sense of even these 2 days we have learned that this message
Yes.
is monetize, disruptive transformation is open your business models. New opportunities is based on data. It's not based in this hardware that was in the past. Like if you distribute 1,000, 10,000 nodes, you will be the company.
Yes.
And here is the infrastructure is there. Make your transformation, make your adaptations, and allows these solutions to get access to that data.
Yeah.
And even sell that data.
Yes.
Encrypted, unencrypted, fuzzy whatever mechanism you use for that is there.
Somehow for the whole ecosystem, you have to make sure that you can rely on the data, and yes,
But
yes.
The open we go into the stack, the more opportunities we give to the hackers or to the people to get us, or to the leaks, to talk in terms. It's not this balance or control of this trade-off, the real problem in IoT security. Because you see, the more secure you want system, the lower you have to go to the core. The less security you risk, you have to go to the core. And the good example from the banks, right?
Yeah.
If you want a very core of security box, you should enclose everything. But if you want to update your system, you want to have less maintenance cost, you have to enable one USB.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I remember the USB in early 70s was just a connector for speakers. If you see a keyboard, you see a Sony or Panasonic product, it has the USB. And if you plug it in, think that you have an interface, it's just a speaker. But you see, is the more you go to the core, we have security. So my question would be probably more specific. In Gemalto, so what is the approach of Gemalto in order to offer the security trade-off? Is running the risk of open more interfaces or guarantee that the core will be embedded security? Because see, one thing is embedded security, other things is security as a service.
Well, the security, I think you will really have to look at the specific things that you are protecting, and, well, it depends on which threats you're eventually looking at. Yeah, if you simply take the fact that if the system gets more complex, you will have attack surfaces that you cannot protect because you cannot really analyze everything. Yeah, there is not a panacea to solve the problem, to my opinion. Yeah, so the thing is that you have to layer the security that you're starting with nucleus that you can trust, and you have to see what you can always layer on top of that. Like taking, well, if you take, for example, the hardware case, you take our dongle, yeah, then you're having a secure way of actually doing cryptography there. You can bind the identity to it. You can, from that, also have a secure way of providing a public key to verify additional components. If this fails, you could disable things, and so forth. You can kind of build things up, yeah.
Security by design.
Yes. Any further questions? Thank you very much.